Hello and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. My name is Ayo Makine. Welcome to the program this morning. Well, today we have, go straight to the papers, and we have Dayo Akintobi joining us this morning for the analysis of some of the headlines. He's editor-in-chief today, Community Newspapers, TCN. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Always a pleasure to be here.
I'm spoiled for choice. Because like every paper has a different angle to every issue on the front burner this morning. But of course, the one that everyone seems to be talking about is the removal of subsidy. So Daily Trust newspaper leads this morning the gamut of that one. FG mulls 2.4 trillion naira palliative as 1.8 trillion naira annual subsidy goes. That's what the Daily Trust newspaper leads with. No provision in 2022 budget, says Senate. 5,000 naira transport grant for 6 to 12 months, ascribed to the minister. No template to reach the poor, that's in parentheses. Find out who said it on the inside pages. And Labour knocks government, says palliative abate.
Well, we've all been hoping to get rid of this subsidy for a very long time on the condition that the effects can be cushioned for the Nigerian people. And that's what the government is trying to do here by introducing this 5,000 naira transport subsidy. But it's fraught with quicksand because, first of all, there's no template by which you identify the poorest of the poor. Okay, they say 40 million people out of 200 million will be eligible to get this 5,000 naira transport stipend, which is supposed to cushion the effect of the removal of the subsidy. Because once the subsidy goes, the price of fuel is going to skyrocket, naturally, to what the market commands. And so, to cushion the effect for the poorest of the poor, they want to give everybody 5,000 naira a month transport allowance. First of all, there are a number of issues. They are not sure yet if they're giving for 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months. If they end up giving 5,000 naira a month to 40 million people, it comes to 200 billion. That 200 billion over 12 months comes to 2.4 trillion. Meanwhile, the subsidy itself is just 1.8. So essentially, we're going to be giving more money to save what we've already complained is too much. And so it doesn't seem to compute when you look at it. However, having said that, if it's given for only 6 months, that cuts it to 1.22 trillion, which is actually less than what is paid on the subsidy annually. However, I want to give a caveat that the transport subsidy is only for 1 year. So we will only spend that 1.8 or 2.4 trillion for 1 year and it's over and done with, unlike the subsidy, which is annual and which is recurring and which continues to cost us money. So to get rid of the subsidy, we subsidize people's transportation for 1 year and it's over with.
I don't even want to begin. Well, this is a whole new conversation on its own, so let me just leave it there because...
But then again, having said that, how do we pick the 40 million poorest people? They say, okay, those who haven't had 5,000 naira in their bank
that conversation
accounts.
is on the front pages of the papers. I'm pretty sure that we're going to get to
when the poorest are
already.
unbanked.
Look at the leadership newspaper also,
Yes.
for instance. Subsidy removal. Senate experts query identity of beneficiaries of 2.4 trillion naira palliatives,
yes,
as the lead of the leadership newspaper this morning. And the story is on page 4. A couple of writers. No provision for palliatives in 2022 budget. It will last only 12 months. As the palliatives, according to the federal government. I think you've spoken to this. So it's that query of who are these beneficiaries? Who are these 40 million people? Because according to the World Poverty Clock, we are very close to 100 million extreme poor. So is this palliative going to the poor or the extreme poor? That's another conversation altogether.
Or maybe to the party faithful.
Oh, well, that's another one altogether. Well, look at okay, right above the major story, beneath the nameplate. Air Nigeria plans takeoff in April 2022. Are you optimistic?
I'm a bit worried about that because April 2022 is 6 months away. And for something that was just announced yesterday. Starting an airline is not like starting a transportation company. To even get your airworthiness certificate takes a good 2 years. To negotiate for planes, to employ people, to train them.
They started the conversation, it was 2018 or 2019?
That was audio. Nothing ever happened. We just designed a logo.
What if something is happening, something has been happening and it wasn't in the public domain?
Nothing happened. It was just a logo that was designed, because the reason we know nothing happened is that this proposal was presented to the FEC, to the Federal Executive Council, 6 times. It was yesterday for the first time that it was even approved for consideration. As a result, nothing has been able to be done if it hadn't been approved in the past. So we're just starting from ground zero. And we've set a near impossible target of 6 months to do all the things that are necessary to get an airline up and running. I put it to you that it takes a minimum of 24 months, a minimum, because you have to negotiate leases on planes, you have to hire and train people, open branch offices, set up websites. There's so many things. To even get your airworthiness certificate alone, you go through trials and tests and things like that. So I'm a bit worried that I hope this is not another audio proposal whereby...
Well, maybe because, I mean, look at, for instance, the conversation around the governing of the airline.
Yes.
The federal government will have 5% stake.
Yes.
Nigerian investors will have 46% stake.
Yes.
So 51% altogether to Nigerians, and the foreign experts, technical, strategic foreign partners will take 49% partnership. Is that in any way likely to help speed up things?
Essentially, it's a PPP arrangement, public-private partnership, which we have always said government has no business in business anyway. Government's not efficient at running business. So that is a good structure to have, whereby private sector players will be the ones actually running the airline. So that gives it a good possibility of surviving and thriving, because, of course, private sector people have profit incentive, and as a result are bound to be more efficient and watch the bottom line a lot more carefully. However, having said that, even private sector players have to go through due process. There are processes that need to be followed scrupulously, because especially, remember, with airlines, safety is a big factor. Absolutely. So before you even get your airworthiness license, you go through so many safety tests.
You talked about airworthiness already like 3 times.
So I don't know how we're going to...
hope.
I don't know how we're going to get it done in 6 months. But it is a good thing. Let's encourage the government to get it done for national pride and for competitiveness in our skies.
The Vanguard newspaper is next, and it talks about the same story, leads with the same story. Petrol subsidy removal, 5,000 naira grant. Senate disagrees with FG. NLC, excuse me, NLC, TUC threaten showdown. Here we go again, right?
Here we go again.
The riders first. 5,000 naira transport grant for 40 million Nigerians not in budget 2022, says Senate Finance Committee Chairman. Grant to cost 2.4 trillion naira annually. FG caps implementation to 1 year. It's open invitation for civil unrest, says NLC. TUC shocked, insists negotiations ongoing. Stories on page 5.
Yes.
So it's pretty much, is it here we go again, really? Because according to TUC, negotiations around the removal of the subsidy has been on for quite a while now.
Absolutely.
So one is wondering, how far so far?
Well, I think for the government to have made a firm stand that they're taking it out in 2022, they must have carried the key stakeholders along, including labor, including the oil marketers, all the people that need to know have probably been carried along throughout this thing. Now, the Senate saying that it's not in the budget becomes an issue, because where do you get the funding from? However, on the other hand, and I'm actually quite impressed that the Senate is standing up to the executive. They're getting some teeth finally and trying to shed off that toga of being a rubber stamp assembly. So that's a good thing that they're standing up to the executive. But remember, they said they put subsidy in the budget for 2022. They allocated for subsidy. So that same money can now, after discussion, essentially they're just telling you, yes, it can be exchanged for each other. Just come and sit down and talk to us. Give us the due respect of our office and carry us along. But the money does exist within the budget. It just needs to be rewritten.
Rerouted.
Yes, rerouted.
You know, every time I hear carry along, I remember the conversation we had with the governor of River State that says carry along in politics is something else entirely. Okay,
It's
well,
a catchphrase.
direct primaries, INEC ready once president assents amended law. That's ascribed to the president of, beg your pardon, the INEC chairman, Yakubu. I wonder, do you wonder, as many do, why it's such an issue with politicians, the direct primaries thing?
I don't quite get it, except beyond the fact that direct primaries seem to emasculate certain categories of politicians, especially from the governors going on down. The excuse they're giving is that it would be overly cumbersome and expensive for INEC to oversee direct primaries in every single ward, constituency, state level, national level.
I'm not sure that's what really concerns them, because
I said that's the reason they are giving. That doesn't mean that that's the actual fact.
Okay.
However, the issue is direct primaries takes away power from certain players and vests the power in the entire party structure, which, of course, I think deepens democracy and makes people a lot more relevant in who ultimately gets party tickets.
Again, we wait to see. Everyone is all eyes on the president's office right now.
Yes.
Or is it the president's signature?
Yes, his assent.
Mr. and Mrs. Now, the wife is quarreling with the husband. It's my right to have a say in the running of this house. I'm your wife. And Mr. replies, okay then. The landlord has increased the rent. He's asking for 2 years' rent in advance. Now let me hear your say.
No, it's for Mr. to make the money, it's for Mrs. to spend it.
The Tribune is interested in the same story. Nigerian Tribune. 5,000 naira transportation grant not provided for in 2022 budget. Scribe to Senate says subsidy accommodated. It will last for only 12 months. Finance Minister says the story is on page 8. A lot has been said about this already. Sanwo-Olu presents 1.39 trillion naira 2022 budget. Infrastructure, education, top priorities. Activates 30-year development plan for Lagos. That development plan, I don't know, what do you make of it? All the while we talk about, national development plan, I dug back to find out that we've been having national development plans since like the 50s or the 60s. And first national development plan, second national development plan, and I'm wondering, are we even tracking the progress of those? But in Lagos, one would wonder whether or not, because it looks like there is some traction in that regard. Because I remember, I think the first plan was for like 25 years, which is supposed to elapse in 2025 or so. What do you make of it?
Lagos has been quite consistent with its development plan starting from 1999, and each successive administration has carried on from where the previous one left off, except for the immediate past administration that seemed to go off on a slight tangent that was a bit different from the way it had been done all along. But this current administration seems to have gone back to the original templates in terms of moving Lagos closer and closer towards becoming a mega city. Now, I remember the last development plan for Lagos State was a 13-year plan, I think done in 2012 or thereabouts by the Fashola administration. And we see today a lot of implementation of that original plan. And as it approaches its shelf life, the end of its shelf life, a new one has now been developed for 30 years. And the way Lagos has operated all along, I believe they do try to follow scrupulously the roadmap that's laid down for development. Now, you can also see the budget that's been passed for about 1.4 trillion naira, and its focus on infrastructure. I also like the fact that capital expenditure is about 60% as opposed to 40% for recurrent, which tells you that the finances of the state are ordered properly, because in many situations, many of the other states are in positions where their running costs, their personnel costs, their pension is taking up 80% of their IGR and their allocation. Okay. So Lagos is doing it right, and I like the fact that we're forward thinking. We're thinking 30 years is time of our grandchildren, and we're thinking that far ahead.
Well, you know, one of that document that I found, of course, not related to the budget, but it now talks about the transparency, accountability or transparency ratings. Lagos wasn't, you know, top on that list, and it was a little troubling. I think maybe it's something that the Lagos State government may want to speak to later. Right above the nameplate, NLC TUC rejects 340 naira planned petrol price. Says any unilateral decision will be resisted. Hike will plunge Nigeria into crisis, says Afenifere. Here we go again.
What do we want? Do we want this thing removed, or do we not want it removed? At the end of the day, we're all crying about the fact that the process is fraught with corruption and it's enriching just a few people. So we say, let's get rid of it so that the whole country can benefit. But on the other hand, there are so many terms and conditions that need to be put in place for it to be equitable and for it to not end up hurting the people we claim to be wanting to help.
Terms and conditions apply.
Yes. T and A. T and C, sorry.
Let's look at the Daily Times newspaper. It's on the same major story we're talking about. Proposed 5,000 naira monthly grant for poor Nigerians. Senate counters Finance Minister. Says no provision of monthly transport grant for 40 million Nigerians in 2022 budget. Insists fuel subsidy provided for in next year's appropriation bill. Well, you already spoke to this one. Let's just wait for how that conversation is going to happen, you know, between the two of them, just as you have said. Okay. Nigeria Air to take off April 2022. Says Sirica, FG, Nigerians to hold 51% equity, and on, of course, pretty much the same stories. The New Telegraph is interested in the national carrier. Sirica, finally, national carrier takes off April 2022. Lead of the New Telegraph newspaper this morning. FG to hold 5% equity, entrepreneurs 46%, and foreign investors 49%. Nigeria will generate about 70,000 jobs in first few years. That's what you have on the front page of the paper this morning. The New Telegraph is looking at the same thing. Nigeria Air project to create over 70,000 jobs in 2022. FG, subscribe to FG, as FEC approves 1.49 billion naira for automated civil aviation regulatory equipment. That's the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. And right under the nameplate, Lagos projects 59% capital expenditure as Sanwo-Olu presents 1.38 trillion naira proposed year 2022 budget. That's right there on the front page. 45% price hike. Sentiment of Nigerians not favorable to subsidy removal. That's ascribed to former LCC IDG. I'm just wondering, is the challenge removing the subsidy or the process of getting that done?
No, well, not at all. The problem with the perception from the public is that when this thing is removed, it'll spiral inflation even out of control, even greater than now, and it'll have deleterious effects on the bottom line of the average Nigerian. So the process of removing it is very simple and straightforward. It's been bandied about for years and years and years now. To actually get it done is not the problem. What is causing the logjam is getting the stakeholders to buy into the notion of the benefit of the subsidy removal. Many people are still not convinced that it's the right thing to do.
But do you blame these many people that you just talked about? We've taken loans now for how long? And we hear it's for infrastructure development, it's for this, it's for that, and people do not feel it. Okay, we hear that inflation is slowing down, but the prices of food items, of commodities that people buy on a daily basis are not slowing down equitably. So do you blame people for their perception?
No, I blame government for not creating adequate awareness. The communication apparatus is a bit faulty, and they're not carrying people along and making people understand why government is doing what it's doing and why it is beneficial to the people, even in the long term. There are many initiatives where in the beginning you have to tighten your belt, but over the long term you begin to see the benefits. I think that fuel subsidy is one such that down the road will ultimately benefit people, as long as the right cushioning effects are put in place. I worry about the roads. I worry about things like public transport, conversion to gas. A lot of cars that use petrol, a lot of the transportation system.
We've been hearing that since 2020.
Yes, we hear a lot of things from government, and they seem to take forever to happen.
Exactly. You
but
talked about
that is the nature of government. Things don't happen overnight.
This one has been like what, almost a lifetime now. You will remember that it was in the Second Republic.
Yes.
I think in 1980, 1981,
yes.
The government of the day propounded austerity measures,
yes.
and they called it belt tightening.
Yes.
Now you are asking us to tighten belts more.
Yes.
Should we go to the gym?
Yes, you know, on the one hand, you go to the gym, yes, and you get fit and you can tighten your belt, but on the other hand, you also eat better and you nourish better, and so your body can accommodate.
To Nigerians. Well, you are definitely not speaking to the average.
I understand where you're coming from, but the bottom line is that everything that government wants to do is to the ultimate good of the country and the people. Sometimes it goes about it in a wrong-headed fashion. And I question the methodology by which the removal of the subsidy is being implemented. But that does not mean that the ultimate goal of removing the subsidy is not a beneficial one for the country in the long run. So let's just get the implementation correct. And
maybe we should start, just as you said, maybe we should start with the communication process.
Exactly.
Because that's being fought itself.
I think so.
Daily Independent leads with, "We can't control threats in our cyberspace." Now, that's according to stakeholders, say internet security in Nigeria too open for invasion. I don't know how to place this. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I read it yesterday and goose pimples. I broke out in goose pimples because so much of what we do now is technology dependent, and so much of our lives and our data and everything else and our money is all tied up in this world out there that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't feel, we can't handcuff. So it makes it very complicated. And what is more scary is the report says that certain security infrastructure have been deployed already that didn't work, that have not succeeded in protecting our technology backbone from where our data is safe, our money is safe. So what it means is that it's open season for hackers. Hackers, both in terms of the financial world, in terms of security, in terms of so many other things, we are vulnerable. So it suddenly gives one pause and says, I mean, look at how recently all social media went down for several hours in one day. And they say, well, there was some sort of failure. These are all part of the things that vulnerability to tech can cause. So I don't know what the government needs to do, if it's an issue of throwing money at it, but individually we all need to be careful about how we relate online and how much stuff we put out there. But the government also has a responsibility to create the right kind of defense mechanism that will protect everybody.
Because as we say, the Constitution says the primary responsibility of government shall be security and welfare. And security is loosely used here because perhaps it also includes cybersecurity. We have laws around that one. How effective are they? I guess we'll see. Right beneath the picture of Governor Sanwo-Olu's there, infrastructure, education, top Lagos priorities in 2022, as Sanwo-Olu proposes 1.39 trillion naira budget. Find all of that on the front page, continues on the inside page. It's about the nameplate. EFCC places Governor Willie Obiano on watch list. Is this, I mean, I don't know. What do you make of that? I mean, we all know that the immunity clause protects governor from any form of investigation. So
the EFCC is jumping the gun there because it can't be constitutional for them to take any action, whether overt or covert, against a public officer who has immunity. How far away is March 14 or March whenever that they can't wait, even if they have reason to believe? In Nigeria, we do everything in the inverse. I think that investigations should be completed, indictments should be prepared, you should have probable cause to believe that somebody has done something wrong, and then you should follow due process. He has immunity until March. You cannot now in November publicly come in to put a watch. They've actually called the National Immigration Service and say, anywhere this man wants to go, you need to inform us if he appears at any international airport. But I heard his chief press secretary, his minister for commissioner for information, say yesterday that he's currently in America and that he went out through an international airport and he was not apprehended and he was not harassed, so that it may even be the EFCC playing some political game by putting this information out there. But his commissioner for information said there's nothing to worry about. A guy is walking about freely and he doesn't believe his constitutional rights will be violated as long as he continues to hold that immunity. So let's wait and see. There's so much that flies around now that we can't ascertain the veracity of.
Most certainly, I mean, because almost all the papers have the same story. I guess, as you said, let's just wait and see.
Yes.
Dayo Akintobi, Editor-in-Chief, TCN, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Always a pleasure to be here.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
So that wraps off the papers this morning. We're back for the issues of the day. Do stay with us.
It's the last meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee for the year. After 2 days of extensive meeting with members of the committee, key updates on the global economy is given by the governor of the central bank and how it is impacting on the domestic economy, just as the nation is battling issues of insecurity, which the committee notes its impact on food prices, investments, and the general well-being of Nigerians.
Given the level of its conviction about the efficacy of its actions on macroeconomic variables, MPC felt that whereas tightening would further help to rein in inflation aggressively, it nevertheless feels that tightening will increase the cost of funds and constrain output growth. The persistence of insecurity in major food producing areas remained a key downside risk to our recovery. Committee called on security agencies in the country to increase their presence in order to boost public confidence and facilitate the movement of people, goods, and services across the country. With improved security, especially in these food-producing areas, members expressed optimism that food inflation will drop significantly following successful harvest and distribution.
Recent statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics show that the Composite Food Index rose by 18.34% in October 2021 compared to 17.38% in October 2020. The rise in the food index, according to the NBS, is as a result of increases in prices of food products such as coffee, tea, cocoa, milk, cheese, eggs, as well as bread, cereals, vegetables, potatoes, yam and other tubers. As the economy continues to rebound after suffering many shocks because of the COVID-19 pandemic, members of the monetary policy foresee a growth of about 4% in 2022, just as its interventions in critical sectors of the economy continue to receive a boost.
We are expecting that growth for 2021 certainly will be above 3. We are so certain to be above 3. So if we take it on from there, of course, 2022, we'll expect that it will move towards 4, if not better, if we keep doing the right things.
The year 2021 has seen so many challenges, which has affected most sectors of the economy, namely health and the energy sectors, among others. The central bank is, however, promising to ensure both monetary and fiscal stability to ensure exponential growth of a nation's economy.
Well, thank you for joining us for the program today. Our first issue is on Nigeria's economy, and definitely something that concerns everyone in every part of Nigeria, both Lagos and wherever, including Abuja, where my colleague Maokwe is this morning. Good morning, Maokwe.
Good morning, Ayos. Always good to see you. Looking rather dapper this morning.
Yes, I need to go to the runway then. Maybe that will boost my personal economy. What do you think?
Well, the CBN is certainly concerned about that, concerned about rising food prices and what have you. So anything else you can do to make yourself feel good. And who knows, that, you know, looking good is good business. It might just attract the right kind of business you're looking for.
Well, it definitely is some people's business. For more on that, Maokwe, this morning we have Mr. Kola Ayeye, who is an economist and Chief Executive Officer of GDL Asset Management Limited. He joins us in Lagos studio here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning, Maokwe.
It is interesting, all kinds of things always clawing attention, so to speak, but the one that tops the list on this program today is about Nigeria's economy. You are aware of what the CBN has said and all of the conversations going around. The question that one would want to ask is, where you sit from your experience as first as an economist and then as an entrepreneur, how significant do you see those things being in business and in the economy generally? First as an economist, then as a business owner.
Okay. Painfully, we're now probably approaching the end of the 7th year of this regime. By May next year, this regime will have only one more year to go. Soberly and, you know, without disrespect, the performance of the economy under the current regime has been underwhelming. It's been a performance that is phenomenally poor, in my view. I do not think the things that are being contemplated will make major change between now and end of 2023. I don't see it. I think if you look at a lot of the indices, I was just checking when I was coming to the studio today. In 2015, unemployment and underemployment were under 20 million people. It has doubled to almost 40 million. Exchange rate, which was at 190 and 250, you know, is now almost twice that. The number of Nigerians living under poverty has increased, and we are now said to be the poverty capital of the world. You know, inflation is biting. You know, prices have gone up through the roof. Nigerians are struggling to survive. So if you actually ask me, I will plead, my suggestion is that we actually need to make an attempt at agenda setting to look at what will need to happen between now and 2023, so that 2023 thereafter will be different. I don't have hope that the trajectory in which we are going is going to improve things for the common man.
Is that because of the policies or the implementation of them?
It is both. Let me tell you one thing I see about the executive. I don't think the president's strongest point is the economy. Very painfully, I think the best advisors, his most trusted advisors, the people who are around him, they're not telling him the truth. So when you see the body language of the president, what I see is that I think he thinks that our comments are from those who don't like him, and that it's not a reflection of how well the government does. I think when you see the president comment about how oil prices crashed and what they've done with infrastructure, you see a man who genuinely believes that we have tried, but they haven't. Now, you know, in any team of 40 ministers, because that is what our constitution imposes on governance, not all those 40 are close to the president. That will be his closet cabinet. Just as I'm sure even in channels, I'm sure Dr. Momo has one or two people. So the people who are closest to him, they are not telling him the truth, that our performance is poor. They are not telling him.
But generally, Mr. Ayeye, everybody in the world will point to issues around the economy of every country. Just recently, we hear that even the United States of America had to cough out some palliatives for their people, even in this year. And in fact, right now, I think they are still struggling to pass a kind of palliative budget. I do not remember the name of that one now. So that's global and domestic economies. The challenges are there, and a significant thing that every one of them has been raising is that of COVID-19, the challenge of COVID-19. So that's significant, isn't it?
Sure, it is. But we must always situate things with context. Why is it that in spite of COVID, in spite of reduction in oil price, I still say that we should return a verdict of very poor performance? Listen, I guess for my age, I remember clearly that this economy was grounded for 20 years. The federal government could almost literally not do any capital expenditure because we had $30 billion of debt. You see, under the watch of this government, we have taken external debt from $8 billion to almost $40 billion. We've taken domestic debt to almost 30 trillion from about 10 trillion. And nobody has visibility or transparency about the amount of debt that is in CBN.
But you have also heard the federal government say it's still within the margin of risks.
I don't know who they're talking to. If you have a situation where almost 80% of your revenue, in fact, at a point, 97% of your revenue is being used to service debt, you can't say that's sustainable. Our debt is unsustainable. I'm saying, remember, from about 1985 until the Obasanjo regime paid debt, $30 billion kept this economy under. And in fact, in order to pay it, we got $12 billion of forgiveness. And then we used $18 billion of windfall to pay it. We had $40 billion. This is unsustainable. And then, you don't get the economy to this level of borrowing. And you know what has happened? GDP per capita from 2015 to date has reduced. And so that we don't even bore people with figures, stop talking about GDP. Talk about the person on the street. Are they living better? They are not. You see, painfully, those 4, 5, 6 ministers who are the president's most trusted men, this is not what they are telling him.
Now, my apologies, Mr. Ayeye. Is it to say that the government, whether at the federal, okay, we'll come to the state lead. Is it to say that government is not doing anything at all? Is it to say that government is not even making any attempt at denting the figures?
In my first few years in primary school, I was a truant. I literally went to school to play football. I didn't pay attention. Okay. But I had some colleagues who worked hard. But some of those who worked hard failed as much as I did. You see, if your son, because he's read very hard, if he comes home and has a 20% score, it is still 20%. Mr. President is not short on good intentions. We are saying that today, today, the average Nigerian is much worse off today than it was in 2015, and that the excuse of COVID is not enough because this government has borrowed massively to make up for that COVID, and that in spite of the borrowing, we still can't see progress.
Okay. Now, there are a number of things that the CBN president, the CBN governor said in that address, concerning the impact. Just before we take it to my colleague in Abuja, he talked about the gradual diversification of the economy and the increased contribution of the non-oil sector to government revenues. And he's spoken about the impact of poor infrastructure on rising domestic price levels. And he's talked about the fact that government needs to prioritize investment in public utilities. That's still talking about infrastructure. And specifically, talking about infrastructure, the business environment, transportation networks, power supply, education, and health. And these are some of the areas in which the CBN itself has intervened. Those haven't been significant in your opinion?
There is a right way to do a right thing. And there is a wrong way to do the wrong thing, to do the right thing. And if you do the right thing in the wrong way, you get the wrong result. Let's take two examples. And it's common and overflogged. Ayo. We had 750,000 telephone lines. We needed to sort it out. It did not cost the federal government a penny. In fact, the federal government made money. It sold licenses. Those licenses contributed to the federation account. It did not borrow a kobo. In addition, investors brought money to roll out our telecoms networks. And where are we today? We're at over 100 million lines. The model of funding infrastructure with unsustainable debt does not make sense. Ayo, do you know there are Nigerians who suffer today because they wake up, Lagosians, because they wake up in Ota and they have to come in public transport in order to work in VI? You think they don't want a car? It is because they look at the reality of their finances and they say, I cannot afford a car. It is not that I don't know that this is too much hardship. We have gone through implementing infrastructure in the wrong way. You can't put a nation who is still monoproduct dependent. You can't rack up foreign debt, and kick the ball down the road for subsequent governments and subsequent generations to pay it because you want to celebrate a rail line.
So what's the option?
The option is that you create models to attract the private sector, to bring their money to do it.
Okay. Let's take some questions from my colleague in Abuja. Malwa.
Well, a few of the options which you are now saying were available to the government is what you are now bringing up. For instance, the rail line, which has been funded heavily through debt, through loans, so to speak. But then, apart from COVID, which for a number of people would have said, dealt a very heavy blow to governments all over the world, there's also the question of the fact that before now, and even still now, we're heavily dependent on oil. And this administration has, excuse me, made, a case that when they came into office, oil prices had slumped. There were very little savings in the accounts, if any at all. And that they had to, start from scratch for some of the projects that they had envisaged. For you, and when you think about the challenges that they had in front of them, some people argue that it could have been a lot worse. You don't think so?
A lot worse. A student who scored 20 could have scored 5. The fact that you didn't score 5 does not mean we should celebrate 20%. It could have been a lot worse. But let's also face it. It could have been a lot better. Let me take one example, even taking the example of rail. How do you spend $1.5 or $2 billion on a rail project, and none of us can point to Nigerian enterprises that have become big because of the services and the participation in the execution of that rail? How do you spend that kind of amount of money in a manner that is so delinked? There are no linkages at all with the economy. So that $2 billion debt is money that we borrowed, and it's just gone. I have not met one Nigerian entrepreneur who says in the last 5 years, because I was substantially engaged on some of these projects, my business is now empty. And that is why you are borrowing huge amounts. You are spending them, and there is no impact on employment. There is no impact on incomes. You know, one of the funny things we do? Every Wednesday...
Mr.
Yes.
Just a moment. You know the nature of the kinds of loans that we got, and you know the country from whom we've received these loans. Usually, we've been told that they're pretty low interest rate loans, but they come with conditions. Conditions that if we really wanted the real lines, we might need to, go with, which we've done. And so it's very difficult. I mean, they oftentimes bring their own personnel with them to be able to develop the lines. When we brought up these arguments, we were told, that they leave certain cadre of work to, Nigerian workers. But this is what we have. Were the options really very open to us in terms of where we got the loans and how we carried out this job?
We didn't have to take the loans, Mark, but I'm saying again, no country should take a loan that has no linkage at all to your economy. You shouldn't take a loan where everything that is used is brought from abroad, the materials are bought from abroad, the people are bought from abroad, you are left with a loan burden, and you have not made any Nigerian better off. No.
Okay, let's flip it now. Let's flip it now. Some people will say that we've tried a few other models. Let's bring in electricity, which we've decided will be almost 100% local. We gave distribution companies, or we sold off distribution companies to local entrepreneurs. We sold off generation companies, or we even asked more private companies to come up with generation. The only one that the federal government has kept majority shares in is transmission company. Yet, we're still where we are. Now, there's now talk of, should we, take a second look at how the privatization was done with the distribution companies. There are all manners of conversation. For the examples that we have, where we have brought in local players, have we been able to prove that local players really do make a difference with the results that they produce?
Okay, Mark, a very valid point. Development is tough. Development is not easy. And when whatever you are implementing, you must implement it end to end correctly. I'm going to be very obvious. I'm going to be very frank. The counterparties that the Jonathan administration favored with the oil sector with the energy privatization were very weak counterparties. They brought very little to the table, not capital, not skills. The electricity privatization came to the table on the assumption that people have made a lot of money from telecoms, and power is going to be the next honey in the cookie jar. So with the power privatization, number one, you got the parties wrong. You selected Nigerians. Those were not the right Nigerians, with respect, save for one or two. The second thing is that the policy itself we've seen is wrong. The power privatization was based on, let us, in order to ensure that we don't concentrate economic power in a few hands, let us separate generation from transmission and from distribution. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. Unlike the telecoms privatization, Econet or MTN or Airtel or Glo, they are not beholden to anybody to deliver their airwaves end to end. So it's not enough to say that we want to engage Nigerians. We must have a transparent process that engages the right Nigerians who have some capital and who can bring in the right partners. Those were not the people who gave the electricity privatization. Those people still owe the Nigerian banking industry huge sums of money, which they have not been able to pay. Huge. I mean, look at what has happened since privatization. You go around. How many places have they done substations? How many additional substations have they done? How many more engineers have they employed? You don't give people who lack capacity huge assets and then say that sector is not working. You also don't go into a sector with the wrong policies. You know, and I'm not fixated on Nigerians. In fact, electricity is one in which I think that we need to go back and cancel it. And for electricity, what we should do is do an end-to-end bid. And I don't care now whether it is Siemens or whether it is GE. We should say to people, we will pay you $10 billion. We will pay you how much of electricity you generate every day. But it's no longer our business how you generate and transmit it. Get us electricity to the end user. I want to say this again. It's something I want to say and I want you to sing. The way we should sort out electricity is that those who owe Nigerian banks because they bought electricity companies that they've not been able to pay it, we should tell the banks to go after them and cancel that privatization.
Now, what happens to power sector, power supply?
The power supply now, what we're going to do, Ayo, what we're going to do is that Siemens, GE, and any Nigerian company that can bid, and I'm going to tell you where this has worked in Nigeria, any Nigerian company that can bid should say, see, in 5 years, we want 10,000 megawatts of power. Not generated, delivered to the end user. And we will get you an international bank guarantee that shows you that the power that you deliver to the end user will be paid for every day. The next 5 years, we want you to move it from 10,000 megawatts to 15 or 20,000 megawatts. So they will do it. Let me tell you about the contract I read. I was still a young boy. Do you know the NLNG? The power contract for NLNG gave it to a Nigerian company with a foreign partner. And far back then, the contract said if power blinks one day, the fine is $1 million per day. You know why? Power doesn't blink. They didn't do it abroad. They did it here. If Siemens or GE or any Nigerian company says it can deliver 10,000 megawatts to end user, let us pay them what it will cost them.
So is that a problem with the contracts that was signed? I mean, still looking at this power sector privatizing. Is there a problem with the contract signed?
You see, the problem, first of all, I have said that, and you know, sometimes with benefit of hindsight, we all have 2020 vision. If something is wrong, let us say so. First of all, I say it without equivocation. There may be one or two exceptions. Most of the counterparties that we gave the power companies to lack capacity.
I asked that question
advisedly.
Just a second,
Yes.
Mr. Marco is still on the floor, but yes. I asked that question advisedly. I remember while I think maybe at the time he was Minister of Power as well, Mr. Fashola said there was a need to reconsider, to take a look at those contracts, to give those contracts a second look. So that's why I'm asking, is there a problem with the contracts that we signed? Because you talked about a punitive clause, so to speak, you know, go put into, you know, one contract with a company that is supplying power where NLNG is now. So is there a problem with the contracts? Because there are those who say that if we cancel the contracts, we are going to be very liable as a country.
We don't need to cancel the contract. CBN just needs to tell the banks, take over the companies. The companies owe the banks and they're in default. There are many ways to skin a cat. Those companies owe Nigerian banks about 1 trillion naira.
Don't forget that
the banks will call in the facilities, they don't pay, you take them over. Once you take them over, then you can start another bidding process.
We're taking a short break shortly, but don't forget that you are on one hand advocating for private sector participation. On the other hand, you are putting the chain on their necks.
I'm advocating for competent private sector participation. You know what the private sector is known for? The private sector is known for, when you give me a job, I deliver. If I don't deliver, I face the consequences. We don't baby cuddle private sector. If nobody begged people to bid, if you didn't do your due diligence well and you bought companies on time that is not working, you live up to the consequences of what you bought. That is what the private sector is about.
Okay, let's take a short break now for some messages. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us again. Just before I throw it back to Abuja, of course, some of the messages on the slides that we just sent in, Mr. Ayeye, talk about the rising cost of cooking gas. Yeah. And we've listened to several people. The governor of Delta State that says, advises that it should be arrested. The price increase should be arrested. And we've also listened to the Minister of State for Petroleum, who says it's dollar rated and all of that, so there is little or nothing government can do about it at the time when we are talking about the national gas expansion program? What's your take?
You know, government is about getting the largest amount of good to the largest number of people. When over a long period, you have not managed things well, the things you are supposed to do, you then find that you can't do it. You know, things like gas, you know, because we want to increase usage, we want people not to go back to firewood and charcoal, you know, and in a time when purchasing power is so constrained, we should ideally not leave the average Nigerian to the vagaries of market forces when that thing is going through the roof.
What should government do?
Unfortunately, this government is incapacitated.
But what is it that government should do?
In right times, there are things that affect life, that you either have buffers in terms of reserve stocks or from your own reserve funds. When those prices are beyond what you believe is sustainable, you subsidize it. Those are one of your two options. So, for example, you know, sometimes you have grain reserves. When prices of grains are grown too high, you flood the market with grains. That's one way. The second way is to say, it shouldn't be this hard for people to live. If it reaches this up to this price, government will pick up the tab. It's one of these two. But can this government pick up any tab now? You know, it's a government that has borrowed itself to the hilt, and that is owing a whole lot.
Well, you're here you have to give us some solutions. But let me throw it back to my colleague in Abuja. Mark, your questions.
Well, for me, I think you're right on track, because some people will argue that we still have 1 year and 4 months, as you have pointed out, of this administration. And there's still work to be done. Right now, they're saying, we're going to be seeing Air Nigeria. Is it Nigeria Air now? Air Nigeria, one of the two of them. An airline, that's what we're supposed to be getting in 2022, sometime in April. So it would seem that there are still promises that they're yet to fulfill, and something for us to hope for in the days to come. So as we look forward to Air Nigeria coming, what are your thoughts, practical thoughts, in terms of what this administration can begin to do? They are saying they want to take away subsidy, even though there's always been an argument as to whether or not there was. Now they say, it was under recovery. Oh no, we've actually put it in the budget now. Whatever it is, we are going to be paying the actual price of petrol in the next few months. And they are now thinking of palliatives. There are going to be consequences for that. So a lot of things coming up. To your mind, as one who is also very concerned about the economy, are we on the right track with that? And is that one of the probable solutions that you see to government getting out of the huge debt which it's sunk itself in, and trying to really get the economy back on track?
Okay, I'll comment, but Mark, if you permit me, you know, can you give me 1 second just to comment on Air Nigeria? Air Nigeria, as conceived, will not work.
Let's go ahead.
It will not work. You don't treat symptoms, you treat fundamentals. You see, the aviation sector needs fundamental reform. First of all, you can't have a situation where anybody who goes to Bulgaria buys 2 overused planes, engines which are several decades old, can come and compete by getting licenses. And it's going to be pricing in the same market where people are trying to buy new Boeings. So you need to reform the air sector. Some of us have, some of the studies based on expert reviews, which I have seen, Nigeria cannot, you need, first of all, to raise the standards. So you need to say, over a 2 to 3 year period, to operate in the Nigerian airspace, you need a minimum number of this number of planes, and that should not be less than 10, and that your planes should not be older than this age. You know what you're doing? You are leaving the space for strong players. And it is those strong players you start to direct towards creating strong players. Over there in AMCON already has a number of airlines. It has Aero. It has ARIC. It is those two airlines that the federal government should work with AMCON towards creating one or two strong dominant players. Apart from South Africa, there is only one airline in Africa that is doing extremely well, Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, Ethiopia Airline is the dominant airline. You can't have a situation where you have these 1 dozen, 2 dozen operators. You can't chase them away, but you can create an environment that just leaves strong ones. Now, coming to the issue of subsidy. I believe in government that is pro-people. And the first point we need to make is that any government that does not choose what it will subsidize is not worth its name. Today, in Europe, almost $45 billion is paid to farmers as subsidies. In America, it's about $20 billion. You must choose what to subsidize. And you know, whenever there is subsidy, there is potential for abuse in any country. So what that means is that a government must not only subsidize, a government must put in all the checks to ensure that subsidy is not stolen or misappropriated. That said, we can no longer afford PMS subsidy. It's a pity, but it's the truth. We can't afford it. And it is time to take it away. But it is inflationary. It's going to spike up inflation. And so what are you going to do? You want to create palliatives. We need to ask the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, who maybe over the last 2 years may have received up to ₦1 trillion, to come and account for how that 1 trillion was spent, even if it's just for the purpose of learning. If we did not administer that subsidy well, if it ended up in the wrong pockets, even this one is going to end up in the wrong pockets. So the first thing is that, you know, why was the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs carrying palliatives around in cash? It's not enough for the Minister of Finance to just come and say it's going to be digitally done. You know, we must have a culture of accountability. The one we did, what was the result? What mistakes did we make? What reparations can we make? And then if we're going to pay 5,000, what is the process for identifying those who are deserving and for ensuring that they get it? I don't have a problem, particularly because it's time-bound. Because government also cannot afford it indefinitely. So if it is 6 months, 12 months, okay. But you know what my problem is? If I look at how inefficiently, I do not want to use the word corruptly, the palliatives for the COVID regime was managed, I have very strong fears. And our legislature is behaving as if it is the president's fans club.
No,
anything that the president sends, anything that the president sends is approved.
The Senate is also
before the president approves it, before the Senate and the House approves it, they just say, okay, we've approved a lot of palliatives in the last 2 years. Let us audit it. Even if we are not sending anyone to jail, let us find out the money we intended to use as palliative, where was it supposed to go? Where did it go? Who got what he was not supposed to get, and who got what he was supposed to get? So what corrections are you going to make? So how do you assure us that this 5,000 naira per month per person will get to the right person? Okay. Then we are talking.
Okay. Well, I would like us to leave here with some takeaways. Yes. If you were to set agenda for government, in terms of, first of all, in what areas would you want to set that agenda? We have a challenge with poverty figures. We have a challenge with unemployment figures. We have a challenge with inflation figures. We have a challenge with prices of commodities. So in terms of setting agenda, which of these would you want to prioritize?
Thank you very much, Ayo. I actually think the agenda we need to set is for Nigerians. We are poor and we are suffering. First of all, because our politics is wrong. The agenda we need to start setting is that before 2023, why isn't Ayo and Chamberlain and Maokwe and Kola, the people in the middle class, why have we remained bystanders in politics?
Why is that significant?
Because the reason where we are at, it is because our politics is wrong. You know what happens in Nigeria's politics? The thin middle class and the elite class play the role of bystanders. And so the Nigerian politics is an engagement between the ruling class and the masses. And that ruling class perverts the masses. You and I need to do more than get PVCs. The parties, we need to get involved. We need to go into the parties and we need to participate. Number two, I think we need a credible alternative to PDP and APC, even if they will not win. That we need to set that agenda, that there is need for an alternative. So we are suffering because our politics is wrong. What's the second thing that is wrong? Our morals and our values are wrong. What are the things we need to take out of our morals? Number one, I am a believer that this country will not progress until we conquer corruption. Number two, you know what is wrong about our values? We need to go back to merit. Affirmative action in terms of federal quota. We've done it for 50 years. It hasn't worked. It is now the time for merit to become the order of society. It is immoral to have a policy that for decades says that somebody who scores 10% can be better than somebody who scores 70%. So our morals are wrong. And also in terms of morals, there needs to be a constitutional change. Lawyers have something they call jurisprudence. It is the basis of laws. Jurisprudence needs to be related to the cultural context. The jurisprudence we have, we inherited it from the colonialists. It works for them, it doesn't work for us. I was brought up a Yoruba boy, so I know some Yoruba proverbs. There's a Yoruba proverb that says that Omoyin Oshagbafo, Onkashowale, Eroju Emu. That says that the jurisprudence that works for us is that when you are living with money and assets that is beyond what your income can support, we come and tell you to justify it. We don't go to court with this current adversarial nature that says you are innocent until proven guilty. My salary, they know my salary in my company. If I come to work with a car that I cannot afford, I should be assumed to be a thief. And this is the constitutional and jurisprudential basis of law in Singapore. That is how Singapore conquered corruption. So number one, our politics must change. Our morals must change. We need a merit-based society. And then, we must take lies out of our society. We are not 200 million people. We are not. It's a bloody lie. Let's have a right population figure. These are fundamental things.
But that's why there's a head count next year.
What I'm saying is that let us do it right. The third thing, so I'm saying our politics must be right. You and I, why shouldn't an accomplished person like Dr. John Momoh? I was in Oceanic Bank when Dr. John Momoh came to borrow the first naira to set up channels. I was even afraid that the thing will fail. See what he has built. Why aren't those the people we are voting for? Why are we voting for people who are telling us bloody lies? Why are we telling ourselves to just go and get PVC? Why must we go and get PVC to vote for the wrong people?
But how long will this, all these morals...
We have a little, the most critical thing...
How long will it take before we get
You know why I'm saying this? Quite frankly, there is an election, a governorship election in Ekiti, mid-next year. And there is a governorship election in Osun, December. I wish we would get to work now, so that an alternative will at least show there is hope for an alternative by those elections.
How should we go about it?
You really want to hear me?
Yes, how should we go about this,
the worst thing that happened, in my view, happened around the best thing. Since 1999, I did not see a 2-week or 3-week period where Nigerians, locally and in diaspora, were as proud and happy as they were than when young people who were at Lekki during the EndSARS riots showed us Nigeria can work. My pain about that thing? I could see that was the seed of a transformation to a movement that was going to unseat my generation. We need to tell those young people, we are sorry, but please stop protesting. Start organizing. Kick us out of office. You still have the time. The momentum I saw in those two, weren't you alarmed? Weren't you proud? On Friday, when Muslims want to pray, at the Lekki, the Christians will move back. In the evening, when the Christians want to have all night, the Muslims will say, we are watching over you. In this Nigeria, the clerk, the MD, the manager who came there, if you wanted to eat rice, they were on the same queue. There wasn't one special rice for the MD and another kind of rice. You see, those young people gave me hope. We need, and the generation that is most complicit, my generation. Those of us born from 1950 to 1970, we saw a Nigeria that you didn't see. I went to best schools, best public schools. I went to Government College Ibadan, not because my father was rich, but because I passed the entrance exam. I went to University of Nigeria, I graduated with accounting. I was confident I could hold my own against any accounting graduate anywhere in the world. But that generation of those of us born from 1950 to 1970, we have been so politically inept. And we are living in Nigeria that is hopeless. You know what our generation needs to do? We now need to encourage those young people. Okay. Those young people who are at that gate, tell them, stop protesting. Give us a third force. Nigeria is waiting. So it is that third force that will come and bat this change.
Okay.
That's my view. We need to change our politics. We need to change our structure. We need to change our morals. We need to change our structure. And in order to bat a structure, those young people, we must plead with them to get involved.
I believe that they themselves are listening to you right now, and we can only hope that from here on, we'll begin to hear good things from them as well, because everyone is tired, but then someone has to bear the cart. Kola Ayeye, economist and CEO, GDL Asset Management Limited. Thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you very much, Ayo. And it's always a pleasure to come onto the Channels platform. Channels is one of those forums that show us that we can build things which work. And I continue to encourage you and wish you the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Sunrise Daily returns after this break. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Right now, we have Mr. Sonny Iroche, who is an investment banker, power sector operator, and he's also convener and national coordinator, Abia League of Professional Initiatives, here with us. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Ayo.
And we also have Eze Chikamnayo, who is Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Abia State. He's a legal practitioner. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, my brother.
Before we go into that major conversation, Mr. Iroche, let me take you on some issues around the economy. You are an investment banker. You operate in the power sector. Gratifyingly, there are those who believe that the major critical infrastructure we need in our country to make the economy go as fast as we want it to go, three of them basically, but two really superior, road transport network and electricity. Electricity seems to take the cake. And that's after so many years and so many transitions, ECN to NEPA, NEPA to DISCOs and all, to NEPA to PHCN and PHCN to what we have now. Seems that some people are still holding the power.
Okay, well, Ayo, thank you very much. Let me start by congratulating my young brother, Eze Chikamnayo, who's Commissioner for Information, right? I think they were inaugurated last week or so. So, good to see you.
Thank you.
Before NEPA, there was NDA, the Nigerian Dam Authority, before it went to NEPA and PHN. Power is critical. It's the bedrock of any economy that will drive the small and medium scale and the industrialized nations. You must get your power right. Where we are so far, the privatization in 2013 went well to an extent that we started having post-privatization challenges, which was due to what we call cost-reflective tariff, whereby you produce any good, rice, beans, soft drinks, alcoholic beverages, at X amount, and you are supposed to make profit from whatever products you produce. But in the case of power, I'll tell you that the tariff on electricity today is still based on Naira-dollar exchange rate of 194. It cannot add up. So there must be proper pricing of electricity like any commodity to make sure that the discos, get the real amount and a little profit for their product.
I am a little at a loss. We pay, you're saying essentially that we pay the value of dollars in Naira for electricity in Nigeria. Is that what you're saying?
That is it. Nigeria has one of the cheapest in the whole of Africa. It has not been reviewed to the best of my knowledge. So there is need to really make sure that those private investors who put their money in the power sector in buying these assets, particularly the DISCOs and the GENCOs, the numbers add up. They borrowed money. Some of them put their personal investment in it. So it's not a Father Christmas business. It's like any other business.
Okay. But anyway, let's go to the substance of the vote. Interestingly, it's related because we also understand that, I mean, from the conversation we had with the governor of Abia State yesterday, there is a plan to solve the electricity challenge in Abia State. And he said that within the next 6 months, there will be a 24-hour power supply in Abia State. That must be cheering news for you.
A lot of people come and talk about power, what they don't understand. I recall that when Bola Ige, of blessed memory, was made the Minister for Power, he said within 6 months, they will solve power. Then came my good friend, Fashola, when he was Minister of Power, Works and Housing. He said, oh, even before then, he said the party in power cannot get power in 6 months is not what being in government. Here we are now, 6, 7 years down the road, and we haven't gotten the power right. I don't think the governor understands the vagaries of electricity, generation, transmission, and distribution. It takes more than that. What can a state government do when it has been privatized? The best they can do, they would have done when Obon Victor Atta did Ibom Power, when Peter Dili did Rivers IPP. These are not plug and play. You don't just go to a factory in Germany or in China and point at this and say, this is what I want to do. No, there is a value chain. There are market participants in the power sector. It cannot be done in 6 months. I think the governor didn't get it right.
But you also, Mr. Chikano, you also released a report, you put out a release to the effect that indeed the government of Abia State is going to fix the power problem in Abia State within 6 months.
Yeah, with due respect to my senior brother, I think he's been overtly dismissive of the realities on the ground, probably for whatever reason. But the truth is that the power challenge in Abia is getting very serious and tremendous attention. And in a very incremental manner, we are almost at the end of the road. And with utmost respect to whatever my senior brother, the experiences he has garnered over the years, our governor is sufficiently informed and very much on top of the situation when it comes to the power dynamics playing around our state. Okay,
in terms of specifics now, what is the plan from what you also must know, given the challenges, over the years in Nigeria, solving the power problem? There is usually that need for, all kinds of conversations that need to be held with various categories of people, both locally and internationally. So in terms of realities now, specifics, what is the plan? What's on ground now that will guarantee that in 6 months, that's talking about, say, April, May next year, there will be 24-hour power supply in Abia State?
The governor was here yesterday, and he said very specifically that in 6 months, that we can now, if you go back and play the tape, he said, from now to 6 months, we can now give a date for commissioning. That's, he says that words. Which means that he is saying that all that has been done will come together between now and 6 months, and we can give a projection as to when actually it will take up.
In other words, it's not a guarantee that there will be full power supply in Abia State in 6 months. He will just be able to give us a guarantee in 6 months' time.
No, get it very correctly. Dr. Batnaji, for more than 10 years now, if not up to 15 years, has worked assiduously to set up the geometric power plant, which guarantees not just uninterrupted power supply to Aba and environs, but uninterruptible power supply. I visited the plant myself 10 years ago, thereabout in 2010, and I know the massive investment that's been done. Then when the privatization of the power sector came in, a lot of politics came in, and Dr. Batnaji went into some level of troubled waters. But then our governor from 2015 got actively involved. He did the same for Golden Guinea in Umuahia, which was moribund for over 20 years. He got actively involved, gave all the necessary executive weight, gave all the necessary legwork, did all the necessary boardroom behind-the-scene negotiations, putting all his weight as governor. And today, to the glory of God, Golden Guinea Umuahia, which everybody, and perhaps my senior brother here, everybody that is pessimistic, believed that Golden Guinea was never going to come on stream. Today, we don't only have Golden Guinea actualized under Governor Bazo, we have Golden Guinea mods, and we have so many other products coming on stream. So I don't share his pessimism. I'm not a cynic either. And I know that the governor of Abia State, Dr. Okezi Bazo, is actively rebuilding Abia, quietly, certainly, but doing a lot. You know, we are not going to come here to give deadlines and get held up by deadlines. But as the governor said, very carefully, he said it and he meant it when he said that with the last closure that we were able to achieve in South Africa just a few days ago, with the money that has come from Afrexim Bank. You know, Afrexim Bank is not a frivolous bank. Like the governor said, they do their own analysis, they do their own investigation, they carry out due diligence, and they come out with, you know, their own findings before they put their money.
All right, well, Mr. Chikamlayo, we need to take a short break now, gentlemen, to take a few messages. And when we return, we'll be stepping up on this conversation because, as we know, there's been so much reaction to the conversation with the governor of Abia State yesterday. We'll be back after now. Thanks for staying with us. Mr. Sonny Roche is still with us, as well as Chikamlayo. Well, Mr. Roche, I'm pretty sure you may want to react to a thing or two that you have heard him say. But you know, one of the things that gives a number of people concern in the conversation that we had with the governor of Abia State yesterday is in terms of infrastructure, especially roads. And there are those who have bombarded us with images, with text messages and all of that, saying, look, things are not the way they are. And I'm wondering, is that correct? I mean, he specifically spoke to Falks Road and showed us some, you know, infrastructure development that's going on there. But then there are those who are saying, look, there are so many other roads that are not getting attention in Abia. Can you confirm or refute? Okay.
To be honest with you, Ayo, I came here expecting a right of reply to the governor, to a lot of the misinformation that he gave. Not to sit down with his commissioner to be talking about Golden Guinea or power in 6 months. You know, some of these are so infra-dig and not worth really discussing. But see, for investigative journalism, channels, any journalist, pick up your camera and go to Abia State. Drive around Aba. Interview people. Not government that would always give misinformation. And see, Abia professionals, we are professionals. We have amongst us people who have achieved in every walk of life. The chairman of our board of trustees is Major General Ike Nwachukwu. We have Ogalo Soka. We have Onyem Ugochukwu. We have renowned Abians. And a state like Abia that has produced people like Michael Okpara, that has produced General Agu Ironsi, that have produced Ikemachukwu, Ihejirika, and great Abians, Enin Njoku and the rest of them, should not be in this state of anomie and abject poverty. I heard the governor mention that they give out 500 naira to mothers that are leaving maternity. And I said to myself, may he give his wife 500 naira if she has a child. May he give his daughter, or may the next governor coming after him give his daughters or his sisters 500 naira. What is 500 naira? It's less than $1. For a government that gets 800 million security vote, that is not right. Abia women should wake up and challenge this. It is an insult. It is unheard of. rather say you're not going to pay anything. Nobody tells you to pay any money on their behalf.
But he also
you should
said,
do what you have to do.
But he also said that they get free maternity services and they also get a maternity pack.
What is a maternity pack? That is fine. But do not mention, do not insult our sensibilities by saying you give 500 naira for what? You see, we are leaders, okay? And we must give account of our stewardship when we leave. Since the demise of leaders like Dr. Emma Okpara, Samu Bakwe, Jim Wobodo, Ezife, I'm glad that Anambra State has got it right. They've always got it right. They've always had good governors. But unfortunately with Abia, we have been moving from one bad governor to another. It's as if you just hand over the baton from third 11 to fourth 11. And the Honorable Commissioner here, I wouldn't trade words with him. He's my younger brother, and I was a commissioner about 20 years ago, but I give it to him. He left one administration in Abia and took pages in the papers, abusing them, writing all kinds of unprintable words. You know, so why would we just, because we hold government office, our place in history? What I speak here, not as Sonny Roche, I speak on behalf of the Abia League of Professionals that have mandated me to debunk the many misinformation and the lies told by the governor. Did the governor tell you that the World Bank new map cancelled 27 billion World Bank project? Did they tell you that? Have you seen, go to the Abia website, a state that spends over 80% on recurrence and about 20% for capital project. How will it add up? The hospitals, you go there to the Abia University Hospital, it is a relic. Right? And you come out and tell the international television, on international television, and give misinformation that you've done 200 roads. I am ready. Abia Professionals is ready to sponsor channels to go to Aba. We'll go and interview people and look at, it's not building castle in the air. It is realities on ground. It's governance is too serious to be left to people to be misinforming people.
You still haven't told us some specifics. Other than talk about the hospitals.
The
what
roads.
else? So go ahead.
Why did the World Bank cancel the new map 27 billion to channel off flood water on Aba roads? Okay, well, because of lack of capacity of the contractor.
Let's ask.
Sorry. The governor, when he was flagging off Fox Road, said he's going to invest 6.8 billion on that road, and he was going to give it to Sechako. What has happened to that road? Last week, we buried a member of Abia Professionals.
My apologies,
Mr.
Mr. Roche.
And there was no road.
I want to ask Mr. Chikanayo, the question you asked now about this cancellation very quickly, because I'm wondering if there are so many professionals in Abia, how come none of them is pitching for office? But we'll come back to that. Okay. One. So, Mr. Chikanayo, you've heard him speak about this cancellation of the new map by World Bank. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I would like to also appeal to my brother to keep this conversation as civil as possible. Given the fact that I will...
Just go ahead and speak to the issues.
So why I have to make that point is that coming in here to talk about the governor's wife...
Mr. Chikanayo, please go to the issue, the question that you've been asked.
Now, the first thing is this. The Abia Professionals he's talking about, he's talked about Onyemu Gochukwu, and I want to put it to him with due respect that I just had an interview which I will drop with channels before I leave here with Chief Onyemu Gochukwu. He does not share these sentiments. You haven't
answered the question, Mr. King. We don't have much time.
The questions, he raised issues, please. I just want you, I don't want you to box me in here. I'll give me at least as much time as he had, or half of it to answer, instead of interjecting when I'm speaking. Now, he talked about roads, and he said all of these are castles in the air, and pictures don't lie. I want to say it here before Nigerians that Governor Bazo has completed 44 roads within Aba metropolis, and I have all the pictures here. I want everybody in Nigeria to see this, and I want people to come and dispute that. I will give copies of it to Chief Iroche as I leave. 44 roads, Ukebu Road, Umuola Road, Ehere Road, Egege Road, Ebema Street, Hilltop, and Georges Street, Mivatin, Ojike Street, Ezuku Road, all of this road, Immaculate Road, Osusu Road, all of them, never in the history of Abia has all this road been attended to. And Governor Ikpeazu, the pictures don't lie. This road you are seeing here is a road that leads from Amuda to Achara in Lisochi, in Umunochi local government where I come from. This is Umu Ezuku Road. This is Umuogele Road, and 44 roads. And they are here. All of them are here in this document. And all of them are pictures. I'm not talking about frivolity. So I take the challenge with every sense of equanimity and responsibility. And I want channels to come along with me and Chief Che and let us go to Aba. Now we have completed 44 roads in Aba. Pictures are here. I wish we have enough time. And I will give Chief Che all the information he needs. Because when you talk about misinformation, he is actually the one misinforming Nigerians based on political considerations, not based on facts. Facts are sacred. I'm a lawyer. We believe in facts. We don't believe in innuendos and tantrums. So these are the roads. 44 of them completed within Aba Metropolis. Channels Television, Chief Che, I take the challenge. I want to go with Chief Che Taba. Okay. Now we have ongoing as we speak in Aba, about 13 roads. The roads he will like to go and brandish are the roads where we are actively involved in as we speak. Some of these roads are ongoing up to 60%, 40%, and the contracts are awarded. So if he will like us to have this challenge, and I want this challenge by all means, at least to put an end to all of this deliberate, orchestrated demarketing of Abia State and the government of Abia State. I want this road, all of it. I want channels, I want Chief Che, I want any member and every member of Abia League of Professionals to come on this so that we can all go out there and see for ourselves. These are the internal roads within Aba. You realize that some people went on were threatening fire and brimstone based on sponsorship of politicians. Okay. These are the internal roads in the course in Aba. So I have these roads.
Yeah, I've heard you. But you haven't spoken to the question he asked about the road project that was cancelled, the Newmap project that was cancelled.
Now, I will speak to that, and I'm speaking to that, even though you may not have understood the angle I'm coming from, because I speak to every issue he raised here. I have said it here that I have 44 completed roads. One, I've said it here that we have 13 ongoing roads, which he likes to go and take pictures. And I've also said it that we have taken his challenge, and we want channels to be part of this team. Okay. Now, having said that, let me say it very clearly. The way Newmap operates is a World Bank-assisted project. And Newmap never in the history of Abia State before has Newmap been this active, been this involved in active remediation of erosion sites in Abia State. Okonjo Iweala is from Isingu in Umuahia. Houses were caving in before 2015. Dr. Ikpeazu came on board, paid all the counterpart funds, met all of the conditionalities, and today, the people of Amuzuku, the people of Isingu, the people of entire Umuogele in Sulu, in Isialangwa South, all of them are happy, and a lot of good things have happened there. Now, in Aba, as we speak, I want Chief Che to also, I don't know the last time he visited Abia State though, I want him to follow me from Asa Road all the way, and I mean all the way to Waterside. Ngwa Road that no governor has ever touched before. As we speak, we have done the drainage on both sides, from Asa Road all the way to Waterside, and it's ongoing. Okay. Now, that is a Newmap project. It is not cancelled. That is the word I want to leave with you. And I don't believe in assumptions and presumptions and all of this bias. Governor Ikpeazu is not an analyst. Most of these people that are involved in too much analysis are paralyzed in their own presumptions. But truth is that Governor Ikpeazu is actively working on all these roads, and all of them have their timelines, and we are on course.
Okay. Well, my colleague Malkwe has a question for you in Abuja. Malkwe.
That's wonderful.
Well, good morning, Mr. Nayo. Not so much a question. It's just to bring to your notice that yesterday, after the governor did speak, we had a deluge of mails from people who live in Abia State. I'll just read a few of them to you. Chukwuka Ewelike says, kindly inform Governor Okezi Ikpeazu that road constructions should not be limited around Aba Umuahia. Roads across Abia State are in deplorable conditions, especially Umuahia, Ikotekpene. It says it's a federal road along Obiano local government area. We also had Davis Jumbo say, why do we claim that Abia has contributed to Nigerian rating on ease of doing business when all the roads leading to Aba are in deplorable situations? For instance, Obioha Road, claimed to be under construction, Ohanku Road, Obehie Road, Opobo Azumini Road. In fact, why is Ukwa on lockdown? We got a lot of mails like this, and I'm sure that these are people who know the area and people who have had cause to use those roads. So I don't know if you can speak to these questions. I mean, they all corroborate what Mr. Eroche is also saying in our studios right there. So I don't know if you have a response to the viewers who could be watching today. We were not able to ask the governor those questions yesterday. Would you like to respond to them, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, my precious sister Mo. But number one is that, first of all, there seems to me to be a deliberate policy by the people in the federal government to box in Abia State by refusing, for whatever reasons in the last years, to attend to federal roads in Abia. The Umuahia Kotepmene Road you're talking about, just 4 weeks ago, was awarded by the Federal Ministry of Works. And for the last 6 years, it's been in terrible shape. We couldn't go into that road because of all the legalities involved in doing federal roads. So anybody brandishing that road as an evidence of lack of performance by Abia State government is either ignorant or possibly mischievous. Now, if you look at the other roads you're talking about, the Opobo, Aba, Ikotepmene Road, it's also a federal road. Now, all the roads that are within the state and that are state roads, I say it and I repeat it and I have the pictures. I wish you people can give me the time. Any road that Chief Iroche will mention, I will apart from the ones where we're actively working on. And I repeat again, let me say to the other question that I asked about Obohia Road and all the ancillary roads around Ungwa Road. I've said that as we speak, work is ongoing on Ungwa Road. By the time you channel the water from Asa Road all the way to Waterside in Ungwa Road, then you can do Obohia Road. Obohia Road is a trajectory that is parallel to Ungwa Road. Chief Iroche knows what I'm talking about. You can't go and asphalt Obohia Road without first of all taking out the water along Ungwa Road to the waterside. So having tackled Ungwa Road, we are sure that incrementally Obohia Road is coming on stream. And the contract, as we speak, has been awarded. Okay, now,
we really don't have so much time, so we need to take on a number of other issues. Mr. Richard, you know, the questions around the fact that as National Coordinator of Abia League of Professional Initiatives, one wonders what's the purpose of the Abia League of Professional Initiatives? Okay, is there a political agenda?
Sure,
Seeing that you have also complained that you haven't been having the best of governors in time.
Yes, the Abia League of Professionals is a legally incorporated NGO with the CAC, Corporate Affairs in Abuja. And our major objective is good governance in Abia State. Simple. So when you tell truth, when you speak truth to power in Nigeria, they look at you, they send attack dogs after you as if you mean any harm. The commissioner says it's politically motivated. Who? For what? For what, for heaven's sake? Would it be politically motivated? We have our people there. We come from there. We can't go home. You know, the whole place is run down. There is no proper governance. And you see people using government money for all kinds of diversionary things. There are no supervision. There is no supervision of ministries. Pensioners have not been paid, teachers have not been paid, and government keeps lying to the people. We can't continue like this. I can't sit at Channels TV to be going back and forth with misinformation and lies. Anybody can take photograph. The people who are living there, we have gone there, we have seen the deplorable state of roads. And you talk about Ikotekpene Road. Abia State is one of the 36 states in the country. I was on the board of FEMA, Federal Road Maintenance Agency. And when I was there, I was chairman of the subcommittee on finance. I said to the state governors, before state governors will do roads, pad it, overinflate it,
what
and
year
come.
was this?
This was 2000. I was appointed by Obiano in 2005, and I said to them, I said, gentlemen, if you want to be reimbursed your funds for fixing roads, we must have independent consultant evaluators that will say this road really cost 1 billion instead of 5 billion. Then we'll pay you 1 billion, right? If we had a proper government that cares about the people, because that road leads to the Michael Okpara University, leads to Government College Umuahia. On the other side, it's also a federal road. But the governors of Akwa Ibom fixed the roads and got reimbursed by the Federal Minister of Works. What stops Abia State from doing the same thing? You see, you are appointed a leader for a purpose. You appointed a leader like Moses who goes up there and sees the promised land and leads the people there with vigor, not giving excuses that is a federal road. Every state government does it. You go, and what I insisted when I was on the board of Federal Road Maintenance Agency is that we must appoint a mutual joint consultant to evaluate the real cost of this of the project. Then you do it and you get reimbursed. Okay. What happens to all the money you get?
So what's the plan now, given that this is a challenge in Abia State? What's the plan of the League of Professionals in Abia State to line up governance?
We have asked people who are interested. We must hold you accountable. We will encourage you. We'll talk to the people. We'll talk to the grassroots. Okay. Enough of mediocrity reigning supreme in a state like Abia. Okay. I tell you something. During the voting in the National Assembly, we have 3 senators like every other state in Nigeria. Ojikalu, Abia North, voted no to the use of electronic voting. My own senator, T.O.G., conveniently absconded. He wasn't in Senate for whatever reason. He's lucky. One of his attack dogs, they always send in Abia State. He said he was commissioning a project, and the Abia League is a faceless group. I mean, I didn't dignify that with an answer. Then the Senator Abaribe, representing Abia South, voted yes, the right thing. He consulted, we said, okay, go ahead. Okay. And we wrote him a commendation letter and asked Ojikalu and T.O.G. to explain why they took the stand they took. I
really wish you could continue this conversation, but very, very quickly, in 30 seconds, do you take time to advise government, to the government of Abia State, along the lines that you've been talking?
We will try our best. Will they listen? Okay. They don't listen.
Well, Mr. Chikamnayo, you want to respond to some of the things that you've heard him say?
Yes, Ayo, you know, I'm just holding myself so strongly, so hard when a respectable gentleman turns around to call a commissioner an attack dog. I take exception to that, but I will address it at a more auspicious volume, because when you refer to Abians as attack dogs, that's very diminishing and that's very demeaning, and I take exception to that. But you know, I wouldn't, for respect for Channels, a very respectable organization, I won't join issues with you here about that, but I will address it at my own time. Now, looking at it very carefully, one, Governor Bazu is undeterred by the shenanigans of
you know, what's interesting, if you don't mind me quickly butting in, what is interesting is that some of the conversations that we have had is the number of people that have been owed salaries in a number of sectors in the country. For instance, Abia Police being owed 31 months, Abia Teaching Hospital 22 months, Health Management Board 18 months, Education Technical, Arochukwu 35 months, and many more like that. So I want to quickly speak to that in 30 seconds.
Yes, in a very straightforward language, I wanted you to say Minister of Information, Minister of Health, Minister of Works, or whatever. I was Commissioner 1 Abia State Civil Service Commission, and I make bold to say it here before all Nigerians that not one civil servant in Abia State is owed salary.
So all these figures
you get it right, please.
Okay.
In the parastatals that we have in Abia State, there is a reform going on, and we made board, Governor Bazu came to rebuild Abia State from the doldrums, from the quagmire that people like, I don't want to mention names here because of the sensitivity of this program, but Governor Bazu came to rebuild Abia State, and he's been very deliberate and methodical about it. One, all the backlog of salaries from 1999 to 2015 in all the civil service commission-controlled ministries, he has paid off, and as we speak, we're not owing 1 kobo. Then when you talk about parastatals that have boards, like Chief Hiroche, responsible people manning these boards, and these parastatals are not entirely purely government establishments.
I don't know any of the Abia State boards.
Okay, I know very well that Chief Iroche is a very close confidant of the governor and has come along to talk with the governor on several issues. And I expect a person like him, who is also an ambassador, honorary ambassador.
We don't have time. I just wanted you to speak to the specifics. Are you saying that the government of Abia State is not responsible for these ministries and parastatals?
No. I said, number one, I want you to get the categorization right, and I make both.
Essentially, you are saying the government is not responsible for those salaries. Is that what you're saying?
I'm a lawyer. When you want to put a word to me, I want you to get it right.
We don't have time. I just want to be specific.
Okay, no, the specifics is here. You know, sometimes out of the specifics, you have to listen. The specific number one is that we are not owing 1 kobo in all the ministries in Abia State. Number one, we are not owing. Number two, there is an ongoing reform in our parastatals. We are aware of these backlogs that have, become a major embarrassment to Abia State for the past 30 years. And Governor Bazo has inherited that. He's working on it. He's trying to transform these places. And most importantly, let me tell you, in 2015, for instance,
I sincerely apologize.
Now.
I sincerely apologize, Mr. Chairman.
I want to talk about
we've run out of time. We
do
not have time anymore. I'm really sorry.
Okay,
but
can I address Abia Poly and
I'm
Abia
sorry,
Absent?
Mr. Chikamna. I gave you time, and I kept telling you we don't have time. So just a quick one, Mr. Roche. Now that this is the situation that we have in Abia State, I'm wondering, is there a plan of the Abia professionals to ensure that there is a system of ensuring good governance in Abia State? Is there a plan to confer with government? He has just said that you're a confidant of the governor. Is there a plan to talk to the governor?
I am not a confidant of the governor. The only time I sent him a text, this man just got inaugurated last week.
No, sir. I've been commissioner for more than a month. And I don't know why you are the one doing all this misinformation.
I've never been into government house since Ojikali became governor. Never been there. Okay. I only sent the governor a text. I said, Abia University can create a consultancy like an advancement board where they can do consulting for the private sector and have enough money to be paying salaries. That's the only text. And he said he'll get the VC to call me. And the VC has never called me. That's all.
Well,
never had any contact.
You're not as confident, but you have his phone number.
Why not? Why would I have his phone number, please?
I mean, there are several conversations that have happened. I wish Chief Iroche can come up.
Well, gentlemen, I sincerely apologize.
I don't understand why he's been economical
to deal
with the truth.
all of the issues that have been raised here. But I have to thank you very much with all the respect that you've adduced to each other for the way this has gone. Chief Sonny Iroche, he called you a chief, so I have to do the same. Convener, National Coordinator, really. Abia League of Professionals Initiatives. Thank you so much for your time this morning, as well as Eze Chikamnayo, Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Abia State. He's also a legal practitioner. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ayo.
And that's where we wrap up Sunrise Daily this morning. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, Ayo, shame we can't take the mails. They just keep pouring in. Thank you so much for sending them. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.